the issue with Dave was we were paying him whatever we were paying him last year. Half of it was being paid by Kansas City.
Yeah.
He had another year left on his deal at a very high number, very close to DP allocation numbers. And we tried to negotiate that number down. Dave didn't want to negotiate down. This happens all the time in negotiations. You go back and forth. You try to find a number that makes both parties happy. We wanted to extend him longer. He didn't want to be longer. He didn't want to be with us longer because he wanted to get to Dallas eventually for his family. We weren't getting anywhere, and Dave said, since we can't close this gap, why don't you try to find a trade for me? So we called Dallas. Dallas offered a package. We didn't like it. So we put that aside, and then we regrouped and said, what are we going to do? At the end of the day, we decided we're going to give him what he's asking for. What his last year would have been with us. And we had that deal signed. We were waiting to turn it into the league, and then Dallas called back with what we felt, our coaching staff and Jeff felt was a much better offer. So we went back to Dave and said, Dave, we can move you to Dallas, but we can't move you to Dallas with the contract we've already signed. So he had to go back to Dallas and reconsider, take a pay cut, basically. And that's what ended up happening. Now, it's very difficult right now to look at this trade and say it was fair value on either side. 3 years from now, we can look back and you can look at the trade and say, you know, the value was good or not. I think that's when you can judge it. But I just wanted you to understand the story of how we got there. And it wasn't a salary dump. It's not possible to be a salary dump when we're spending that, our full salary cap. You have a question?
Are we paying any of Vandenberg's salary?
No.
Are we paying anybody's salary who's not on the team this year?
No.
What was Jeff Park asking?
The issue with Jeff was after his suspension, he kind of dialed out with us. And I can understand that. It was very difficult for him. He wasn't trying to cheat, but it kind of cost him. And if you notice, he never issued a statement explaining the situation. He didn't travel with us when we went to the Cup. And we weren't getting a great feeling about that. We were pretty certain that he was going to go to Europe. So if we were going to protect him in the expansion draft, and then he leaves, that would have exposed the next person on the list, which was probably Lambert. We made the choice to keep Carlos because he was more versatile, and we didn't have the suspension issue or the morale issue that we had in the locker room. So I'm not trying to disparage Jeff, but we had to make a choice, and that was a choice we made. We'll see how that works out. So, Corey, do you have questions we can jump into?
Yeah, I got a question. In regards to the Red Bull Arena, in regards to the actual opening, I know you said 2010. I mean, we all got the email. What I want to know is, I mean, how much of that is relying on the fact the surrounding area getting built up in terms of the whole Riverbend District project? Like, I know you just got the bonds for the parking deck, but in terms of like the condos being built and the whole area being built up, before the actual arena opens, how much are we relying on that project?
It's a very good question. Let me back up a little. I'll eventually get to the question in detail. When we had the media event, when we put the first piece of steel in place, the construction schedule at that time for substantial completion of the facility was October 28th. That's not certificate of occupancy. That was substantial completion. So we were already outside the regular season window when that first piece of steel went up. If you go back and read my quotes, I said, it's going to be difficult, but we're hopeful if things go very well that we might be able to make up time and possibly play a game or two. Now, there are a few things that have impacted that game or two. First, your favorite place in the world, Giant Stadium. We have, quite honestly, a horseshit schedule this year. It hasn't been published yet, but we have runs of 4 games in a row at home, then 3 in a row on the road, 5 games in a row at home, 3 on the road, and in the month of October we have 1 game at home. So we had 15 dates that we got from the stadium that we could schedule our regular season. We know we have 15 regular season home dates. We had no flexibility. So there was no chance that we could run our business hoping that we might play one of those October games in our new stadium. The second problem we had was the infrastructure there, as you pointed out, has not started. So the sewer lines, the plumbing, the water, electrical, none of that, roads, streets, fire hydrants, they haven't started there. We think that's a 9-month project. So count 9 months from now, where are we at? We're at the end of the season. We also haven't started the parking garage. And by law, we can't get the certificate of occupancy until we have 4,000 parking spaces in the property around the stadium. That parking garage is 2,000 spaces. Actually, a little more.
Shut the fuck up!
Thank you. Well said.
Buy me a beer.
That parking garage will be done October, November. So again, we couldn't open. Now, what everybody needs to understand was we were already outside the 2009 season. And we're talking about 2010 now. It's painful, it keeps sliding, but it's really a 4 to 8 week slide that we're talking about. I still believe everything goes well. We're going to finish in 2009, but not in time for the regular season. So I appreciate your frustration. I was working at the Meadowlands back when this conversation started. It just keeps dragging on and on and on. It's a race between us and Xanadu to take the longest to get built. So we're almost there.
Good one.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, and we need you behind us when we open that place to have the atmosphere that we've been promising everybody.
Kind of covered the stadium timetable as far as that got pushed back, but as far as us now starting 2010, does that have any impact on plans for things like player acquisitions of DPs that we might have been expecting to spend in 09 and maybe won't get a chance to add to the team?
Very good question. I think you all know the most important transfer window is January. And if you look at the schedule, that means the January transfer window leads nicely into our training camp, which leads nicely into our regular season. Now, I'm not promising anything, but that helps the equation a lot, versus trying to bring a DP in the July transfer window and then play in Giant Stadium and then move the building. So from that standpoint, it lines up very well. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, the economy plays a big factor in that. And we're already losing money, and I'm not going to get into details, but it's a difficult business to operate in. When you're going to add somebody in the multi-million-dollar a year range, it's a difficult decision in this economy. But Red Bull's committed to this. I mean, you've seen or heard the news, Microsoft laid off 5,000 people. Microsoft, of all companies, laid off 5,000 people. Construction jobs in Vegas, Miami, New York, New Jersey, they're just stopping and walking off. The Red Bull's committed, and we're gonna continue to build this stadium. And Mr. Mateschitz believes in soccer, and hopefully we'll have enough time to talk about what we're doing worldwide, so you get an understanding.
Talking about the training complex development, and I think we kind of mentioned it before, but if everyone didn't pick up on that, the details on Hanover.
Okay, another economic issue, really. We spent more last year on the stadium than the stadium in Philadelphia is going to cost. We're going to spend more this year on our stadium than the stadium in Philadelphia is going to cost.